Are we being too judgmental? Are we forcing everyone, including professionals, into political activism? Just because there is a wave of anti-government sentiment, does it mean that everyone should ride that same wave, despite the other roles that they need to play? And we have Wakili Ishamel Nyaribo here with us. Where do you stand on this?
Thank you, Fred. Before I answer this question, I wanted to mention that democracy is much more superior and better to any other form of government. I mean, you can look at what happens in communist nations and what happens in Africa, and you may mention what is happening in those countries where there has been, governments have been overthrown and the leaders appear to lead better. But when you look at proper governance and management of public affairs and state issues, democracy is the best. But Meshach already corrected, he said, we should at least cut our democracy in a certain way, respecting our cultures, understanding the history of our people, where we come from, you know, looking at our young democracy and then determining which issues we must correctly, you know, define and make sure they do not override the bigger national interests. And on that I would agree. Now you ask about faith, you know, there is fidelity to a person and fidelity to the nation. And those are two different things. And this is where I differ with colleagues. When you talk about politics, I mean, I'm here talking today, Fred. I have a right, and I can vote here, right, on, on national television. That is wrong. I mean, we are supposed to give a balanced view of something before we go to our personal issues. So in terms of Faith Odhiambo, I have said it on my social media handles, not only when she accepted, even before, she has every right to accept that sort of appointment. We may differ on that, but you know, when you look at political trends, one, when you look at developing jurisprudence, when you look at developing the lawyers' interests in their spaces, they can never be common, Fred. We can clap for Faith Odhiambo that she's doing all these things, putting the government on check and ensuring that the comrades are protected. That is good enough. Mm-hmm. But we will not all jointly enter that lack or that room or that providence. Each one enters according to their chance, according to their lack. For Faith Odhiambo to accept this particular position of sitting in the presidential committee, some people are asking, what is the constitutional basis? Listen, the president has a duty, power, and a right to appoint committees, if he so wishes, to deliver on his mandate. So it may not be pegged necessarily on a particular constitutional provision, but the law allows him to do that, to appoint a committee, to make sure maybe people who suffered in this or that protest have been paid. The question people are raising is he apologizing? And I've said that here. You can check on the YouTube. I have said it. If the president is actually compensating people, then let him release all the young men in jail. Nobody should be in court today for the protests. And yet the president has committed to, paying them. So that is an independent issue. It is not about faith. Now, faith has been fighting in the streets to make sure people are not killed, they are not kidnapped. We have all been supporting that. Here the president comes and says, Ishmael, I want you to sit in a committee to give me the list of people who were kidnapped. Then I reject. Of course I can reject on personal grounds, but it cannot be legal. You cannot say that you must reject on legal basis. There are no legal reasons to prevent Faith Odhiambo from accepting that position. But the morality around it and the way it feels, that also is another issue. And I think that's where, many young people, Gen Zs, feel that, how can you go to sit with that guy? But Fred, by the way, if we hate the man in office, if we dislike the man in office, in the state office of the presidency, kindly let us teach your viewers to separate between the country must move forward and the person in that office moving it is William Ruto. Now, then when we do that, then we come back and say, no, but anyway, I don't like his promises. I don't like the way he keeps promises. But if you wholesomely hate, throw stones and mud and everything, you're likely to plunge the country in complete chaos.
And that appears to be the approach by mostly, especially the younger generation, that once we said no to this person who's the leader of this country, we say no to everything. And they have a word for it. They call it cancel culture. And this is what is happening to Faith Odhiambo. Cancel culture is basically a cultural phenomenon in which an individual thought to have acted or spoken in an acceptable manner is ostracized, boycotted, shunned, or fired, often aided by social media, especially on social media. Faith Odhiambo a few months back was a hero, especially to the Gen Zs. She's the one who came to their aid when they were being abducted, when they were disappearing. She's the one who showed up to police stations. A few months later, she accepts this still to aid them in some way, but now she's a bad person. Do you understand this disconnect, especially from the younger generation?